What's going on, you guys? Lord Act here, coming at you for another review. Today we're reviewing Mario plus Rabbids Spark of Hopes. Now, you guys know that the first one I wasn't particularly thrilled with. And I think a lot of that was, I felt like the diversity in gameplay wasn't something that I would expect from an Xcom-style game. Is this Xcom? No. I would say this is more of the gameplay from Xcom, and the micromanaging is not in place of this game. So let's go over a little bit about the story. Now, I will say the story is relatively okay. I don't think it's anything fantastic, but it's enough to keep you there going over it. It's pretty much the story about Mario and the Rabbids taking on some intergalactical galaxy beast that is in the space somewhere, just causing all kinds of havoc. That's pretty much the gist of the story. I'm not going to go too much into spoiler territory, but that's pretty much what's going down here. Now, this game is in voice act. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that every game should be voice act, but I do feel like if you have the money and you're not putting it in to something like this, I don't know what you're doing. Nintendo needs to get on the 22nd century in voice acting their characters. I'm sitting here, when you actually go through here and you play what's going on, the majority of it is just rambling. It's like that you know, Yakuza type of stuff where they say something, maybe the first word of the sentence, and then that's all they really say for the entire duration of that conversation. Now, it's like I said, I understand people sit there, they make fun of me, they say, addict, why are you so big on voice acting? Because I expect my games to have a voice to the characters that's going on, especially from a company like Nintendo. But for some reason, people feel like me expecting Nintendo to get with the program is somehow bad for everyone. I think Mario, Luigi, Rabbit Mario, Rabbit Luigi, Bowser having a voice would do this game wonders, and I just don't understand why either Nintendo fanboys or Nintendo themselves does not see this as something that needs to be addressed in 2022. And as far as the story, I do feel like maybe the last planet could have been shortened a little bit. Now, for the way that this system works out is it's pretty much like a Kingdom Hearts, where you have worlds that you go to that have their own internal struggles going on. Now, you do things for the NPCs throughout the world. I do feel like if you were going to go this direction, you could have made the worlds more detailed, have a little bit more lively going on. I felt like for the most part, the main narrative of that world is something that was directed towards the quote-unquote darkness that Mario and, you know, the Rabbids are facing in this game. But I never felt like the worlds had their own ecosystem, had their own livelihood, their own culture. I felt like it was strictly designed to carry the narrative of the actual darkness plot, the main storyline. And that's okay, but, you know, look at something like Kingdom Hearts. You know, when you go into these worlds in Kingdom Hearts, they have their own culture. They have their own struggles that's going on in that world. And I felt like Ubisoft didn't take advantage of building these worlds out. I don't understand why, since Mario has, Nintendo in general, have all of these worlds that they can do stuff with, why didn't they have that kind of direction while going into Mario Rabbids? Maybe it's something they want strictly to be more towards the Square Enix with Kingdom Hearts, but I felt like you could have did something a little bit better. I felt like the worlds in general just could have been more open, more detailed, have more NPCs, have better quests and side quests, because majority of the side quests literally are, yo, the tentacles are on this side, can you please go get them? That's pretty much the entire game, really, to be honest with you. That's why I felt like it kind of outstayed its welcome a little bit, because once you do that enough times, you kind of get tired of doing that. But besides the voiceovers and, you know, some pacing in the game's a little off compared to other places, I'm not going to sit here and say the pacing of the game's bad. I think the pacing's pretty good. It's just they could have did a little bit better, maybe make certain of these areas a little shorter, and I felt like it would have carried on a lot better than it did to me. Now let's talk about the performance of Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hopes on the Nintendo Switch. It's horrible. I'm not going to sit here and say that it was like the worst experience I've ever felt on the Switch. There's definitely worse. But at this point, playing this game, Nintendo, you need to make another Switch variation. It needs to be stronger. It felt like every time I did certain things, like a Luigi Rabbit has like this special that you can do where he like pretty much breakdance and brings everyone's weakness down. That glitched and looked like a PowerPoint almost every time I did it. Thank God I didn't use him to the very end of the game, but I was so annoyed every time I used him because I'm like, how did Ubisoft feel like this was appropriate to run? Like, look, I get it. Maybe they were doing everything they can. There's only so much you can do with a system like the Switch. But at this point, I mean, what? The Switch came out in 2017, 18, 19, 21, 22. 4 years? That's still pretty low in on the scale in terms of consoles. But as far as a handheld, just upgrade. You know, I'm not trying to be rude on this matter, but we've had it enough where you can upgrade and I don't think people is going to get upset. Especially if you announce it like when the new Zelda comes out. I can't imagine what the new Zelda is going to run like if Mario plus Rabbids ran like this. Then again, Nintendo's in-house studios are going to be making that, and they probably know how to work their way around the Nintendo Switch's actual builds better than Ubisoft would. So maybe it will run a little bit better on the Nintendo Switch compared to Mario and Rabbids ran on it. But it's just like, at that point, you know, it's probably going to be 30 frames. I hate running games at 30 frames. And it's just like, at this point, it's like I said, new Switch and Nintendo, get with the program. Now let's talk about gameplay. You guys know that when it comes to games, usually gameplay is what I put above everything else. Story is important, but I feel like gameplay is going to keep you interacted with the actual product. Story will only get you so far. If you don't like playing the game, most likely you're just going to look up the cutscenes from the game going forward, so you don't have to play that gameplay. Now, if you guys don't like the XCOM style gameplay, I don't know why you're here. I said that at the beginning. I feel like the majority of people know this game has that type of gameplay, and I do think they do it well. So Mario and Rabbids, the first one, had a pretty standard XCOM style game. They had it to where you go to one block, another block, you fight, you got two things. They kind of changed it up in Mario and Rabbids, and I don't think it was better, but I don't think it was worse. When I saw this grid space initially, I felt like they took a lot of the turn-based out of it, but no, it's still very much there. Now let me explain what I mean. In Mario Rabbids Sparks of Hopes, you pretty much have this diameter around you, this AoE, if you will, if you guys play those type of games, where you can move around anywhere freely in that section that you want to. And why does that matter? I think that they wanted to go towards more movement, and the reason I feel like that is because there's a lot of characters in this game that have increased dashes. There's characters in this game such as Mario that allow you to jump on an enemy's head multiple times if you upgrade it. And the way to do that is to move your character to a specific point on there so they can bounce off that and do a team jump. I feel like they're very vocal with this. This is the way they want the game to play for certain characters. I think Mario is one of these characters. He was designed to do movement and then do shooting second. And the reason I think that is because Mario has like a huge and detailed tree on his Overwatch ability, and what the Overwatch ability to me is just pretty much his special, where if an enemy moves during their turn, he will shoot them. They have an entire tree dedicated to Mario with that, so I feel like that's how this character is moved, and I think the majority of them were structured around this to some degree. There are new characters in this game that allow you to do it. You know, there are characters that you wouldn't expect in this game that have huge hit points when they actually dash into enemies. Now, all of them aren't designed for this way. You know, Luigi, for example, is a sniper. He does have an Overwatch ability, which is interesting, that pretty much everyone, their special is some form of Overwatch ability. They wanted you to do a lot more shooting on the opponent's turn, and I respect that. I feel like the movement system gives this enough, you know, uniqueness where it's not quite like XCOM. It's its own little thing, and they put the Mario system in here, because what's Mario always been about since the time of a day? It's a platformer. You jump on Goomba's heads, you jump over blocks. That is kind of what this game similarly is. Now, obviously, it's not a platformer. It's a turn-based game, but I do feel like they put some of that essence that belongs in Mario in this game, and I have to respect them for that, because a lot of companies love to take formulas from other franchises or other publishers and developers in general, and I feel like they don't really add too much of their own to it. They just jack the core basics of that other development studio's process, and they don't add anything to it. But I felt like they did enough to the XCOM style in this to make it their own. This is a Mario turn-based game, and I think a lot of you would enjoy this particularly. Another thing I have to really give them props for is just the leveling system in this game entirely. When you defeat enemies or defeat a mission in this game, you get levels up. Clearly, you get experience, you get these things called like these rainbow coins. I can't remember exactly their name. That's what you level up the sparks with, we're going to talk about here in a minute. And what I like about this is it levels everyone up, and not just the character and the team that you use. There's other games that don't do this. Octopath Traveler does not do this. So when you get to scenarios in the game where it's forcing you to use all of the members in your team, you are stuck with people that you've used the whole game and people that you haven't used any of the game, pretty much. Sure, there's people that probably use all of the characters, they switch them in and out, but I would say mostly the people that play this game stick to 4 people that they have good symmetry with, and they stick to them for the entirety of the game. Now, there are scenarios in other games where they force you to use other characters, and Sparks does have this. You know, Sparks of Hopes has certain side quests forcing you to use maybe Peach and Rabbid Peach. I hate these missions because a lot of the time the characters aren't balanced. I feel like they just did this to add content, and these are the difficult missions in Mario Sparks and Hopes because they're forcing you to use characters that you wouldn't normally use, most likely, and on top of that, they're forcing you to use characters that aren't necessarily working good together. The reason I'm not going to really go at them too much for that is I feel like that's more of challenging yourself kind of thing, and it's not necessarily you have to do it to continue the story. So I feel like that was done intentionally. They want you to challenge yourself to how to use these characters correctly or the way they envisioned it, and that's okay with me. One thing I really wish Ubisoft would do if they make another one of these is let me have 4 people. 4 people. It's not hard. There are missions in this game where you use 4 people. I don't understand why they can't just let me use 4 people. I get it. 3 is probably a good number for them. Maybe there's no more that can be worked than past 3 on the Switch. Maybe it's performance issues that they stick with 3 people and not 4 towards the entire game. I just feel like 4 units to be able to use leads to more diversity in gameplay, leads to more strategy you can use between characters. 3, you can still have access to these combos, access to these unique aspects of gameplay, but I don't feel like it's enough to make me really want to go and explore because you only have 3 people. So, you know, Ubisoft, if you're able to, if you make another one of these, let me have 4 people. I feel like the majority of people watching this video would agree having 4 people leads to a lot more variety of type of gameplay and combos that you can do in the game. And that leads to the, you know, the other great aspect of Mario Rabbids Sparks of Hopes. It's the sparks. I feel like that's the missing piece that made me really enjoy this one over the previous one. And the reason I think that is because with the sparks, they added elements in the game. And I'm not saying there wasn't any form of element weaknesses in the last one. I don't think there was, but there might have been that I overlooked. But in this one, they just plainly tell you, look, if you're fighting a water opponent, use this spark that gives you lightning attributes to your attacks. Use this gust that gives you wind attributes to this attack. Now, what's cool is all of them doesn't do it. There are certain sparks of that element that give you AoE attacks, and I think it's a good variety of gameplay. I think that was the key thing of this game that made this unique and different from the original one, and really made it stand out from games like XCOM, is the fact that it's got an element system in it, it's got a weakness system in it, and I like things like that because it adds variety of gameplay to the actual games. For instance, you can do stuff like when you're Luigi, you can do the gust ability when you know there's a bunch of people weak to that around you. And if they're in full cover, which is 100% you're missing, you can set Overwatch up. And as long as you don't shoot, you have enough points to do that because you only got 2 points every turn, or 2 action points every turn. And as long as you just do the lightning ability or the gust ability and you do the Overwatch, when that person leaves that cover, they're going to get hit by you. I think that gives you a lot of variety in gameplay. There is people in here that if you add the sparks to them, they become utterly broken. And it's not just attributes and weaknesses and elements. There's abilities on here to revive with sparks. There's sparks in here that give you abilities like invisible. You could turn invisible. So if you want to make tank characters and go in there and do as much damage as possible and then pop up that last action point to go invisible, that is a gameplay style that is available to you because of these sparks. And I really love the sparks and the variety of gameplay they gave you in this game. And you know, most of the time I would never bring up last bosses. I'm not going to spoil anything so no one, you know, freak out and click off the video. What I want to really say is they did a really well last boss in this game. And I feel like anyone that gets to that last boss, they're challenging. They have a lot of aspects and challenges that you wouldn't normally have in these type of games. And I like people being different. And I feel like the last boss in this game is very different. Another thing that was kind of weird on this is the weapons seemed to be entirely cosmetics. They had no stats behind them whatsoever. I didn't really like that if that was the case, because I felt like it took away some of the strategic points that the previous one had. It's just like, look, like you can give me weapons that have stats on them. We're not in 1990, you know, we can have stats on weapons. Maybe they did it to casualize the game a little bit more, to make it more approachable for people, where they only have to really worry about what sparks they have and what their ability trees have, which obviously this game has ability trees. It's got RPG mechanics in general, so I don't feel like it's lacking them, but I've always felt like weapons is the center of an RPG, where what kind of weapon do you have on? And look, all the weapons are preset. You can't change any weapons for the most part. Luigi's going to have the sniper rifle. Mario's going to have the dual pistols. But I do feel like they could have had stats that made certain sparks better or worse. I feel like that could have been an easy route they could have done. It doesn't really take away from the game, because I do feel like they did such a good job with the tree on here and the sparks in general and how they collab with each other. But I do feel like it could have added more of a centric point on the RPG system and made it a little bit more in-depth. Maybe make it a special mode that you don't have to actually go with, but you can go with the standard one that we played now. But if you want to have a little bit more of an RPG tree in it, you can go that direction too. But to conclude, you know, people ask Addict, I've heard you talk for 17 minutes. What is your opinion on if you should buy this game? You guys know I don't give numbers on anything. I feel like numbers take away from the actual points of the review. I would say this is a buy. You know, even at $60, if you like these XCOM style games, it is a very easy game to get into. It's very fun. It's got a lot of cool aspects, got a lot of, you know, pretty decent sized puzzles. And even though that some of the pacing was a little off, I never felt like it was enough to make me turn this game off. It has fantastic gameplay, and I feel like if you have never played this style game, it's something that is casual enough that you can actually enjoy it, but it's not casual enough that people that love this style of gameplay can actually play and enjoy. And I feel like that's a really good balance that Ubisoft has seemed to have done, and my hat's off to them. I do think this is worth your money, and I think you should go out there and try it. I would prefer it coming to the PC, Ubisoft, because I feel like it would run way better, but most likely it's not. If you want to play this game, go on Switch. If you're a little bit on the fence, now myself would definitely pay for this game, and I feel like if you like this type of gameplay, you would like it too. But I understand Black Friday coming up, maybe you should wait for that too. I'm particularly one of those people where I can't wait. I'm that type of gamer that I want to play the new stuff now. And if you're that type of gamer, don't wait for this game. Just go out there and buy it. I think it's a good game, and I think it's worth your $60. But anyway, tell me what you guys think in the comment section below. Did you guys enjoy the first one? Are you thinking about picking up the second one? Very curious to hear you guys' opinion. Put it in the comment section below. And until the next review, this is Lord Addict. We're out of here. Peace.